world, let's chat it up. We're talking competitions, uniforms, and all of the above. It's the Cheer Mom, yes, the Cheer Mom podcast. Cheer Mom, yes, the Cheer Mom podcast. Cheer Moms, your podcast is on.
On today's episode of Kristen's list of world problems, let's just go down the list of my first world problems right now. I can't find any photos or videos on my iPhone. The update, they're there, I just can't find them. My roots are showing. Waste Management changed our trash pickup day, and we are struggling to remember it. I need to be making and posting more videos to stay in front of you guys because of the algorithm. I'm gonna have to switch hotels in the middle of cheer sport. These are my problems. Southwest is taking away the open seating policy, and I just made A-list, so now what are they gonna do for me? Because A-list, you get the first boarding group for the open seating. These are my first world problems. Happy day to all of you. Whether you are on your way to a competition or on your way home, nursing that cheer hangover, I am really glad that you're here, and I am so grateful that you continually listen to the Cheer Mom podcast. More than you know, please share it with a friend. Think back to the time that you were a new cheer parent going, what the heck is a bid? And what is summit? I thought it was a mountain climb. And just not knowing what the heck was going on. Think back to that version of yourself and how much you may have benefited from conversations that I get to have here on the Cheer Mom podcast, and share that with a new cheer parent friend. It's not presumptuous. It's helpful. It's supporting a small business. It's not intrusive. It's creating community. That's all I'm going to say about that for now, for today. Speaking of wonderful experts that I get the opportunity to talk with on the show, today's guest is no exception. You may have seen her on social media. You may know her well. Judge MiMi joined me to talk about the score sheet in cheerleading, to talk about judging moments and how she keeps her judging fresh. And we talk a lot about the dance in the cheer routine and how that contributes to the score sheet and dance in cheerleading. And I really enjoyed the conversation. As a fan of dance, this is something I can connect with, that next time I watch a cheer routine, I'm going to be watching for these things. Make sure you follow Judge MiMi on all the socials. She is hilarious. She has so much energy. I don't know where she gets her energy from, but she breaks down routines really well. She is relatable to parents, helps us to understand things. Athletes love her, coaches love her, and she is a positive, shining light, and I thoroughly enjoyed talking with her. We even talk a little bit about AI and judging. Interesting. Parents, I always say, don't talk to the event staff, don't talk to the judges. Your directors and owners probably say the same thing, leave them alone. But if you do see a judge, in the restroom or walking past, just give them a high five and say thank you for what you're doing. Maybe anonymously leave some snacks and waters near the judging booth so that people, so it doesn't look like you're bribing the judges, but just anonymously, just give them some good sustenance. They need it. Those are long days. Let's take care of our judges in the best ways that we can. And without further ado, here's my conversation with Coach MiMi. This episode of the Cheer Mom podcast is brought to you by my new favorite piece of clothing, my Apollo socks. I'm not kidding. It's like a hug for your feet. Listen to more of the episode to learn more and find out how you can get 10% off. I absolutely love callbacks, or what they call Easter eggs. Those little, if you know moments in movies and remakes and songs. And the cheer world has so many little things like that that are important to us, that are just specific to us. things like hit 0 and 2 minutes and 30 seconds, not to mention the letters that are so important to teams and programs. I don't know a program that doesn't have some version of this. You know what I mean? Like G3FCA2A, OAFAAF, SE4L. You get it, right? That's why I started TCC Jewelry. At tccjewelry.com, we don't just sell jewelry, we create conversation starters, from bracelets to rings and necklaces for all ages and sizes, and even custom designs for teams and programs. TCC has you covered. There's even opportunity for fundraising and kickbacks for gyms. So basically, we want to make you look good and help you get to your nationals events. Whether you're a cheer parent, an athlete, or just a fan of looking amazing, TCC Jewelry is your go-to. Check it out at tccjewelry.com and enter code CheerMomPod for 15% off of your order. Check out tccjewelry.com and enter code CheerMomPod for 15% off your order. That's tccjewelry.com. Enter code CheerMomPod for 15% off your order. So Mimi, I've been always an admirer, and as cheer content creators, like, we all admire each other and respect one another. But I'm going to tell you what, like, won my soul, what video that you made won my soul over that I have watched at least 5 times and shown like my close friends and family that aren't even in cheer. I'm like, this is the video. It's the one when you're like, okay, this is just for the cheer parents now that it's just us. And the part where you're like, if the music goes out and you're clapping, or even not even if the music goes out, like when you're clapping during the dance, stay on the beat. I was like, yes, that. My husband is a drummer, or was, he's retired, but he, every time like the music goes out or not, everyone's clapping too fast. Can the girls hear us? Because if they can, they're going to be like all over the place.
Oh yeah, like rhythm is not for everybody, but that's definitely something where I'm like looking at a dance. I'm like, if everybody was on beat, I wouldn't be like struggling to be like, are they on the musicality? They're like screwing with my job too.
Well,
I'm
and
glad this resonated for you.
That one, like that was my video, that like that you made that for me. The universe gave that to you to find me. And I think of a couple of years ago in the NCAA arena, what was it, Panthers, that video that went viral everywhere and was like on the Today Show, that their music went out and we did what we do and everybody counted the 1 3 5 7, but it got faster and faster. And it was like, I want to say like almost half of their routine where the music went out. So they're like throwing their pyramid to 1 3 5. So I was like, how are they doing
People
this?
get excited.
Yes. And anyway, so welcome. With all of that, welcome. I'm so glad that we're finally getting to do this. And you have been highly requested. I just have to tell you that anytime I put it out there to like, what do you guys want to hear? They're always tagging you. They're always mentioning you. I know that the listeners of the Cheer Mom podcast are going to really enjoy this episode with you. I'm excited to ask you some questions about judging. You have some really smart insights on judging, not just through your short form videos, but I've listened to you on a couple of other podcasts, and I really appreciate your perspective. And I think that even though we've talked about the score sheet, we've talked to other judges before, I think that there's always so much to learn and so much changing that we can never hear enough from somebody who's up close and personal on the judging panel. So what I ask everybody this at the beginning is, what got you into cheerleading in the first place?
Bring it on is what got me into cheerleading.
Are you serious?
It's gonna sound as cheesy as it is, but I finished my dance career. I was in high school. I was dancing like almost full time. It was like a dance study program, and then I was moving on to college, and there was no dance team, and so I was like, what's the new thing? And it was like the era of Bring It On, and it was like, what? It was building like the energy and excitement was there. Exactly. Woo! And
The
so I
doing the sprinkles.
sparkly finger, spirit finger. It was pretty much like that was the time. And then there was a cheerleading team at my college, and I was like, this is the next phase of my life. And that was 20 years ago. So here we are, bring it on to cheerleading in college. And then it just tickled my brain in such a great way. I love the group mentality of cheerleading, being like needing everybody and being so inclusive and working towards a goal, needing people that were flexible but strong, and like just having like being able to step into all of those different type of roles. And I started coaching. I loved it too. And then I coached a bunch of high school and then university team, and then I started judging, and then I loved that too. And then my just the way my life evolved, judging became the thing that I was like, you know what, this I can maintain with my adult life and my adult job and my kids. And it's a way to give back to the community. And so I just like really leaned into what was in front of me.
Okay, so how did that translate into making amazing TikTok videos and reels and all of the entertaining things you do on social media?
Yeah, it was kind of okay. So I'm from Montreal originally, and I moved to the West Coast about 12 years ago. And when I moved to the West Coast, I decided not to coach, to not be affiliated with any team and be able to judge a little bit more. But that meant that my community, my cheer community here in BC on the West Coast, was much smaller than my cheer community that I had back home in Montreal. And it was like Messenger was the thing. We were sending DMs on Instagram and we were communicating, but during COVID, we weren't seeing each other. I was craving that community, and that I had videos that I would see on TikTok, and TikTok was growing at the same time. And I would be like, I have no one to send this to. I have no one to talk about this to. Like, I'm like seeing things, and I'm like, like I'm hoping all the teams could see this. But then I was like, I don't know how to get this out there, and I don't know who to talk to about this. And so one day I was just like, you know what? I'm going to share my opinion here, and I'm just going to put it in the universe and do a reaction video. And then the next weekend I was at a competition, and we're usually two judges in the room, but I didn't have my partner. My partner couldn't make it. So I was alone in the room, and I was like, I'm going to make a get ready with me video. Like, I've never done this before, but let's go. Let's try to film this, and let's try to see what comes out of this. And that took off also. And everything I was just putting out, like I was having reaction. People were commenting. Since day one, I've been answering every single comment myself, every single DM. No one's getting unnoticed. Like, I'm building this community like piece by piece. And I felt like we were growing something that was a reflection of what I love about cheerleading, which is the positivity, the inclusion, the education, like the learning together as we go. And so I just threw in the universe that I wanted to talk about cheerleading, and it just came back at me, and people were really liking it, and the community just built on itself. And it's been a year and a half now, maybe a bit more. It's going to be 2 years in April, and it's been life-changing.
You and I have a lot of parallels. I'm big on community too, and respond to every single DM that I can. And it used to be every DM, it used to be every comment. I need to get better about that. But I love building community and helping us all to see that we are different, but we're the same in so many ways. And your struggle is also my struggle, and I don't think we talk about that enough. So love that. So let's go back to so you have a dance background. I'm a dance enthusiast. I am only 5 foot tall, and I have really short legs. So my dance career ended very early, and I transitioned that into like show choir. Yeah. So if you've ever seen Glee, everybody, like, that was really close to home. I haven't even really watched that show that much because it was like too close. But anyway, so I'm a dance enthusiast, big fan of dance, secretly hoped that my daughter would be a dancer because I felt like I could connect with that. She decided to do cheer, and cheer dance is very different from we'll call it traditional dance. Yeah. So is that for you, or how was that for you when you first started? Is it frustrating? Can you separate the two? What's that like?
Yeah. So when I was studying dance, like I was a tap dancer. That was like my first thing. So I started with tap, and that's how I got into the scholarship program for dance. And then from there, I learned all of the different other type of dance, so like hip hop and jazz and ballet, because they were all elective that I needed to take. So from one thing that I knew, which was tap, and that was like my passion, then I started learning all these other dance and deepen my knowledge into those dance. So I felt like when I moved on to cheerleading, it was just like one extra style of dance. And so I
Okay.
see them as isolated in a sense, like the crossover. I see the inspiration sometime where I'm like, it's inspired by like gum boots, or it's inspired by more like jazzy movement. Like I can see it, but I find that I'm able to compare cheerleading as its own because I know how to judge it. Whereas like when I'm watching UDA, I'm a spectator. I don't want to
You
break it down. I don't
appreciate
even,
it. Yeah.
yeah, I want to just be in the moment and cry and look and have the goosebump and like just let my, and not count like how many turns and how many this. I'm just like, I am here to look, just experience this.
That's really cool. And I've popped into the dance venues a time or two, and I just feel like I can exhale and just I feel safe here.
And it's
I love it
magical.
here.
That's the thing
Yeah.
with dance. It's bringing you elsewhere. Cheerleading is very high energy, but also high impact. And that's in the nature of the sport, right? We were like sidelined first to engage the crowd. That energy was needed. Whereas dance makes you feel emotion deep in your core. It's
Yeah,
very different.
it has to come from your core in a lot of styles to come through to the audience and for the move to translate. But this isn't a dance podcast. I'm going to stop right there because I could keep going. But I think it's funny, and this is going to make me sound a little bit like a snob, but really, I truly appreciate it. But I think it's funny and cute how more cheer routines in the dance are starting to implement real dance moves in terms of like traditional, I should say. And I think what was it, Stingray Orange, that she did like an axle or a yeah, and everyone it went viral and everyone was like, "Oh my gosh, this is amazing." And I'm like, she was a dancer. And we need like more of that. Do you see that coming into cheerleading, or is that kind of a novelty?
I see it as a trend. So like I think like it's going to be trending for a while. We're going to see a lot of those spotlights, and then we're probably going to move into something else. The intricacy about cheerleading is that you can take technique in all of those parts. So like tumbling technique, you could go down the road of like gymnastic and like train like a gymnast. And then in the dance section, you could train like a dancer. And in the stunt section, you could go back to circus and acro. And there's so many parts, and like being versatile probably means that you're not going to go like very deep in all of your training, or you'll train like multiple years for one routine. We're stuck with that
Yeah.
competition schedule. That is, we cannot deepen that understanding of every single part too much.
It's hard to make big changes because we're just always on the
When's the next
hamster
one? When?
wheel. And yeah, I'm curious now that we're talking about it, how the cheer dance sort of originated, because it is very different and it's getting more creative, but cheerleaders don't necessarily have, I feel like I want them to have like more chest pops and more of the body position of a dancer than just doing a motion. And my take is I would love to see dance teachers come over, because we have like cheer athletics also has dance athletics, and Top
Yeah.
Gun also has dance, and there's all these programs that have dance that I would love to see the dance teachers come over and choreograph the dance in the cheer routine. Do you see that being a possibility?
Not in the way it is judged right now. And the score sheet impacts a lot of like how
Okay.
routines are built. There's just not enough 8 counts for a dance teacher to be like, they're used to doing longer, being
Okay.
able to build on something. We have 4 8 counts sometimes. And so I could see some dance teacher really being able to translate over, but there's so many drivers to hit on like level, footwork, partner work, like lifts here, there, formation change. This needs to happen.
Okay.
That, and you need to be specialized in that to be able to hit all of those drivers, score high, and make it into 4 8 counts. Like make it into the shortest amount of
Got
time
it.
possible. It's different skills.
Let's start with that. Let's get into the score sheet. If you could describe the score sheet in one word, what would it be?
Confusing.
Thank you. Thank you. Justin Carrier said rubric, and I was like, okay, if we're going to get like
Well,
technical and analytical about it, okay. I mean, he's not wrong, but I was like confusing that I can track with that.
let me explore that more because when you said the score sheet, my brain went first to which one? Is it
Okay.
the
Yeah.
Open? Are we talking United? Are we talking IASF, USSF, like in the US, in the world, like in ICU? That's why I say confusing because there are so many that when we say the score sheet, what are we talking about,
Yeah, you're
right?
right. You're right.
And that's the place where it is confusing because they all have different ways of looking at your routine that will impact how you're building routine, that will impact your score. And a routine on one score sheet won't score well on another one. And that's the
Yeah.
confusing part.
So you're judging in Canada and in the US, is that right?
Canada, US, Australia, and a bit in Europe. I'm literally everywhere.
And those are all different. They're all different
Mm-hmm.
score sheets though, right? Even just Canada and the US, that I hear that the style of cheerleading in Canada is not
Different.
very different, but it's different enough to
Mm-hmm.
it doesn't immediately translate. Say if a team in Vancouver is going to go compete in Seattle, adjustments need to be made.
Exactly. We see that, let's say in Canada, we have teams that compete at Worlds and at Summit, and then just Worlds and Summit are on different score sheet. World is a comparative one, Summit is a rubric one. And so it is the same thing for people in the US, whereas the teams that are going to World need to get their bid on a united score sheet, but then compete on a great routine on the world score sheet. So like we have teams that are flipping routines. They're like, hey, I'm going to go and score really high in this comparative way to get my bid, but then I'm going to recreate my routine for the United score sheet because that's what it's going to be at Summit. And so it's just very confusing for
How did
everyone.
we get here? What's your take on like how did we get here with all these different score sheets?
Um,
I know that we have like different organizations and their private organizations and businesses and want to
mhm.
develop their own thing, but I think about like the game of basketball. A travel is a travel and a hold is a hold and out of bounds is out of bounds no matter where you play basketball in the world. A base hit is a base hit no matter where you play baseball in the world. And cheerleading is so different. How did we get here?
So the two main philosophy are like the comparative and the rubric. And I think the rubric is easier to recreate weekend in, weekend out, right? So there's less of your personal experience as a judge. For example, I understand why varsity or open championship would like to be on a rubric. If you're putting on 300 events on a weekend, you need to find 300 time, let's say 10 judge, so 3,000 judge that will be able to be on that system and make it consistent across the country. So it is more replicable in a sense. Comparative, there's a lot of your own experience and what you know, right? So when you're looking at skills, you're like dissecting how many people doing it, what does that mean in terms of percentage for your team, what does that mean, like they added a little bit here, a little less there, how would I say which one is more difficult? There's a lot more knowledge that needs to be in the scoring system, and then it's less replicable. You cannot compare in between, so that just doesn't. You'll need like more experienced judge. You cannot compare in between like the whole country on the same weekend because it's not the same judge, so it was judged a little differently. So it's just like harder to gasp. So I know there's like reason for both. We got here because cheerleading was growing so fast, and so replicability was something that was needed. But then when you get to those events where it's the best of the best, you want to have that space to do that comparison and use all of your knowledge as a judge to be able to be like, yes, you've added a little extra something here, and that should be like the thing that maybe puts you above.
That makes sense. Hearing you explain it, it makes me think of like almost like battle of the experts, like the people who are designing these score sheets, their interpretation of what skills are important and where technique should weigh into it. Is that kind of, am I on track with that kind of analogy?
Yeah, there's a part that yes, it's like your interpretation of what should be in the like in a routine is how you like build your scoring system for it. There's also I think it's the whole replicability. There's things that wouldn't
Okay.
exist if replicability wasn't there. Like the league, for example, wouldn't be able to exist because you wouldn't be able to compare score from one competition to another. And so having that replicability allows to open for stuff like the league, where we can compare what happened in one state to what happened in another state. But on the comparative system, you cannot do that because you weren't at that competition, so you weren't compared against those teams. So then you cannot compare to competition.
This episode of the Cheer Mom podcast is brought to you by Apollo. It can be really frustrating when your cheer athlete is sidelined or struggling with foot or ankle pain, and Apollo Performance Socks are a game changer. They've made a huge difference for me. I know they've made a difference for cheer athletes, better than heel cups, and they can help your athlete too. Give your athlete the gift of happy feet with code CHEERMOM2024 for 10% off. Just visit apolloperformance.com. That's Apollo, APOLLA, performance.com, and enter coupon code CHEERMOM2024 for 10% off of your purchase. Okay, so what, in your opinion, in your opinion, let's talk about a utopian cheer society where we are all on the same score sheet. We're all following the same rubric or context, all the same rules. What needs to happen for for cheer routine scoring in terms of all-star, we'll just take all-star, for that to be a universal, so to speak, score sheet? What needs to, if we could wave a magic wand and make it happen, what would need to happen?
That's like the $1 million question.
Okay. So there's not like a simple answer.
No, I don't think there's a simple answer. I think like the power above needs to start like to align, and that to let go of things. And then there's no better scoring system right now. Both of them have a reason to be there, and it's almost pick your battle, which is the downside of one score sheet is the upside of the other, and the downside of the other is the upside of one. So everybody's going to be like, you're a loser a little bit everywhere. So like a middle ground could be a way, but then you have to let go of things like knowing exactly your difficulty numbers, or exactly this should score 4.3. There could be a lot of work to be done on this, but then it's going to take a lot of alignment and a lot of egolessness. Egolessness.
I like that word. It's interesting as I've gotten to know people across the industry, at varsity, at Open Championship, at this event, at that event, and even talking with, name drop, Jeff Webb's team. Everyone has very passionate opinions about their version of the cheerleading score sheet. Very passionate. And they all give props to the other. They're like, this is good, but if you work on our score sheet, you're gonna benefit in all of these ways. And people, you just have to ask the right question, and people will talk for a long time about their passionate opinions about the score sheet. And I like it because I like to learn things. But yeah, you're right. It's hard to, when you see that kind of passion, it's hard to let go when you're that passionate about something.
And as a judge of multiple events, I'm agnostic to scoring system. I'm going to go, and you're telling me your routine is built on this scoring system. I will evaluate your routine on the scoring system you pick. And so it is not my place to be like, oh, this one is better than this one. There are some things I love about a scoring system when I'm in it and I'm doing it like the whole day. I'm like, I just love this little thing about this system. And then I go into the other one. I'm like, I really forgot about this one. And I love this part. And then I get into another one. I'm like, I love about this part. But the knowledge of all those different is what I think makes me better as a judge, because I'm able to like translate in my brain in a bunch of different language. And then I take the piece I like about all those systems and I bring them back in like my toolkit.
I would be a terrible judge because because there are things that impress me that if my daughter and I are watching a routine together, I'll be like, oh, that was so cool. And Abby's like, that's not even like a difficult skill. Like it's not even going to count toward their score. I'm like, but it looked so good. And then she'll show me a highlight from a routine that she loved, and they're doing blah, blah, blah to the blah, blah, blah. And I'm like,
Yeah.
cool. Like they make it look easy and it doesn't look impressive to me. Like I'm very visual. And so I'm like, oh, that's cool. And she's mom. That's like nobody can complete this skill. Like nobody. And I'm like, oh, wow. Okay. If
And
it doesn't, I'm like, eh.
but for you as a mom, like I find myself like in your shoes a little bit, like my kids are doing a sport that I've never done before. Like how was that transition to get to a point where you felt like you understood the scoring, or were you like hands off, I don't know what's happening and let's see.
I still don't, and I still don't understand the score sheet. I still like I said, I've talked to so many people who have had an actual hand in decisions about these score sheets. And it's not that I don't absorb the information. It just doesn't, I just haven't made that connection. The light bulb still hasn't turned on for me yet. Like I understand transitions and I understand like sections and I understand that there's the elite part of the routine and there's the pyramid and there's jumps and I understand all of that. But when it comes to terms of like difficulty and overall and like creativity, I don't get it. Cause like I said, there are some teams that have incredibly creative choreography that they don't win because it doesn't translate on the score sheet. And I'm like, but they did like a ripple. They did a ripple skill and they circled around each other and somebody came up with a crown. And I was like, that was so cool.
So
And
what
like
I'm
the
hearing
people who know
from
what they're
this,
talking about are like, yeah, but like they didn't
it wasn't
max out
hard.
their score sheet.
Yeah. So what I'm hearing from this is that if you were to be a judge, you would probably be a good overall judge because what catches your eye is like easier is like those ripples, those creative moment, the moment that made you feel something versus the moment where you're like, oh, that was really hard because it caught it in like an extension versus a prep. You're more like, that was great vibe. And so that's maybe more like the overall score sheet. Oh,
More of a feeler. Yeah, I've talked to a couple of coaches after their teams performed, and I'm like, how'd it go? And they'll get into the nitty gritty with me about the judge didn't like how they gripped her foot here and how her hand was too high on her leg or too low on her leg for that level. And I'm like, this is too much. I cannot, this is too much. It's on my Instagram profile right now. I don't understand the score sheet either. So if you're looking for expert insight on like why your daughter's team didn't win, like I'm not the one. Like I'll cry with you and I'll be like, I'm so sorry that happened. I'm sure they were robbed, but I can't. I've had people say, can I send you the video and can you tell me? I'm like, I really can't. I have no insight. I'll be like,
yeah.
look how cute their uniform. I love their hairstyle. I love the way that they did those high ponies. So yeah, I would be a terrible judge. So let's go back to the score sheet and let's start with dance because I don't think we've talked about dance on the podcast that much in terms of scoring. What are the parameters around dance and what are the judges overall looking for? What does a great dance look like in a cheer routine?
Yeah, totally. So dance scoring is two parts. One part is how difficult it is. So what is in your dance, and the other part is your execution, like how you're doing your dance. And that's always the two score that coaches are trying to maximize. So they're trying to make a hard dance, but that athletes are going to be able to execute. So sometimes you have to make it just a little bit easier so that the execution can get higher, right?
So what's a dance? I mean,
Exactly.
like, I don't want to say it's not hard, but I'm like, okay, I'm going to stop digging myself in a hole.
It's great. Those are great questions. So like in terms of what makes the dance hard, there's a couple like what we call drivers that are things that we evaluate. So they're consideration that we're going to look at when we're looking at your dance. Think of it like little checkbox that we're going to be like, oh, did this happen? Yes or no kind of thing. Things like, am I just making arm movement or arm and feet movement, right? It's harder if you're moving the top part of your body and the bottom part of your body. Am I staying static, always in the same spot, or am I changing formation? So then if I'm changing formation, I need to like then move my legs, my arm, make it into a new formation, make it look cute while I'm doing that. The pace of like my combination. Am I going like 1, 2, 3, 4? Am I going 1, 2, 3, 4?
Okay.
So as much as it gets, the harder it gets. That's what all of your difficulty thing. Partner work is instead of dancing alone, I'm dancing with someone else. That's harder. We have to be in sync. We have to work together, right? Levels. I'm going on the floor. Then I have to stand back up and make it look cute. So that's harder. So all of those little things will make your dance hard. And that's why like when you build the dance, you'll see like people, up, people down, people touching, people moving, people doing line, the feet and legs, and like all of that together so that all those check marks are, yep, okay, you got it all. Like that's been hard, right? On the execution side, though, is just how you're doing it. Is it clear? Are you hitting a motion and everybody's going in the same spot? Or are people like, oh, we're like, oh, half arm, right? Like all of this could affect your execution. We're a sport of similarity. We try to have everybody looking the same in a sense. And so you're trying to have all the arm placement the same, all of the body angle the same. And so that will all affect your execution. Mistakes will reduce your score. The better and the more perfect it is, the higher your execution.
Interesting. Okay.
How was that? Did you like?
I can get on board with, I think I can get on board with that. Yeah. I think I can. Yeah. I think I look at it through fresh eyes because I would always, even, I'm not proud of this. And I'm not making myself look very good on this episode, but for me as a parent and even now watching other teams, it's okay. Like the dance is either like the happiest part of the routine or let's just get through it. It's the part where if I'm at an event and I'm standing in the back and I want to watch some team perform, like the dance is usually when I leave. Okay, yeah. Especially if there's been a deduction or a mistake. It's, okay, the dance doesn't matter. Or if they have hit, the parents are going crazy, the coaches are going crazy, and then the dance is, I think it might have been one of your videos. I heard somebody say people think that the dance is like this celebration if you've hit, but you could actually you could win or lose in the dance. Is that part of it? So is that execution and difficulty? Like how can you win or lose in the dance when it's really close, say in a close world's division?
Yeah, on the United scoring system, so the summit and so on system, you have like zero point 0.5 points for your execution and 0.5 points for your difficulty. And we all know that sometimes you can win or lose competition by 0.1. And that's the place where you can go and get your 0.1. So like having a good execution, good energy, like everything falls into execution of dance. When the dance starts, execution is everything. It's your showmanship, it's your formation transition. I'm not, as an overall judge, I'm not scoring formation transition in that part of the routine anymore of the score sheet. I'm only scoring that in your dance execution. And like all of those 0.1s will be important for you to make sure you finish at the top because they're a little bit more maybe subjective. And so you might being able to give that energy to the judge and the judge finishing being like, yep, this was great. They had such great energy, no problem with what happened before to what happened in the dance. They were able to let it go. So it's all about those 0.1s in the rubric system. You need to inch your way to the top.
Okay. In general, I'm not talking about you. I'm not talking about me. I'm not talking about the judge sitting next to you. In general, do you hypothetically, could judges not score a dance as well if are there certain moves that would be greatly executed but maybe not age appropriate that could dock them? Does that hypothetically could that happen or does the score sheet pretty much protect them from that?
That would go more into the image policy, which is a deduction. So that's more like the legality and deduction judge than the dance judge that would pick that. For us, when we're evaluating dance and creativity and formation transition and stuff like that, we're style specific choice. For example, doing a cone in between your tumbling or clapping and then doing a high V before your jump instead of clapping and going up. Like all of those like stylistic choice, we don't evaluate. It is like whatever style you pick is your style. And then we evaluate how you do it. If it is inappropriate, then that's a deduction. And that's like the IASF, USSF part of it. So it's legality deduction. They have a different training than the panel of judges and they take care of that.
Okay. That's interesting. So if you are judging a dance, you're not looking at maybe like the 6-year-old twerking or the 9-year-old like doing a drop or whatever at the overall style.
We're talking about it. If I'm like, "Ooh, this made me uncomfortable," and somebody else is yes, then we can raise our opinion and bring it up. But it's not It's rare. Ever since we
Okay.
had this image policy deduction put in place a couple years ago, 5 years ago,
Yeah.
maybe even more, we haven't seen
Yeah, I
any.
haven't seen it as much. I Now that you say that, I haven't seen it as much, but it's still something that's like in my mind that I'm like, I don't know about the youth athletes pulling that move. Like they executed it really well, but yeah, that makes me uncomfortable. Is that
Yeah.
why
And
sometimes if a coach is, we had a legality, we're going to take care of it, but like they don't expound on it? Could that be a reason why we're not going to shame this athlete or embarrass this athlete? We had a legality, they warned us, and we're going to go and fix it.
yeah, I would say it seriously, it's very rare.
Okay.
Cheerleading has changed so much since COVID. It's much more on the sports side and the artistry. Like we see less of what we used to see in the 2000s. Like
Mm,
it's less of an issue. I find that a lot of, if we're talking legality specific, a lot of what we see are execution based legality. And so it's something that wasn't
okay.
choreographed to be illegal, but the way it was executed, I don't know, that the flyer like leaned on the back spot and then suddenly they were over the back spot. They can't be over the back spot needs to be behind. Boop, execution was the root cause of that legality. And so it's that's more of what we see in competition than yeah, image policy ones.
So teams are staying as far away from the line when it comes to the image policy as possible.
Yeah, and all legality. Like they are worth so much. They're taking so much point out of your scoring
Yeah.
system. Then like why even toe the line? It's not worth it. So every single coach is trying to stay as far from legal as possible on every single skill or sending them in and getting approved beforehand so that it's you're not losing a competition on a legality, right? That would be like,
Yeah, it's devastating. It's devastating. I
yeah,
think so. What do you think overall as a cheer judge representative? What do you think is a cheer judge's biggest challenge?
I would say the stamina is probably the biggest challenge. We're on panel from sometimes when the first team is on the warm-up mat, so that could be as early as 6:30, 7 a.m. And we're there until the last team is leaving and it's the last award. So we might be there until 10:30, 11 p.m. sometime. And that is a regular work day, right? And so you
Mhm.
have to, I would say the biggest challenge is staying consistent and staying present and not feeling tired and fueling your body the right way so that your brain is fresh and has enough energy for every single team coming on. And however that looks for a judge, you have to have your own like tools. Like I have a vocabulary sheet when I'm starting to feel a little tired about my vocabulary. I can look for synonym and like refresh and re-energize what I'm writing on. Sugar at the end of the day is a great one. Coffee in the morning. We all have our thing, but I would say that's the biggest thing, the hardest thing for a judge. I think a lot of people are like, I could judge a team. We're not asking you to judge a team. We're asking you to judge 250 teams.
Mhm.
And are you
Mhm.
able to do that? Do it consistently. Do it on pace. There's 6 minutes in. There's a new team coming in, and you have to be like complete with your score sheet, fast, efficient, good quality comment in 6 minutes, moving on, and then starting all over again, over until 11 at night.
And that is something that parents worry about too is, hey, how many judging panels are there? And are we getting tired judges at the end of the day? Are we getting a different panel on day two from day one? Is it going to be consistent? And all of those things. That's definitely a concern for parents too. But the fact of the matter is that even just your numbers from earlier, 3,000 judges, maybe in one weekend, there's probably not enough judges to go around to keep everybody fresh throughout a day like that.
That's why you'll also see a lot of awards break also. The awards
Mm.
break also allows us to leave, refuel, eat, go to the washroom, and then come back. You might see those awards. I always say we need more judges. I'm not being like precious about, oh no, they'll take my job. I am not worried about my job at all. We always need more judges. Good judges rise to the top. If you're good at an event, we need someone at another event. I'll be the first one to call you. Just we can circle through a lot of people because there's just so many events. It's such long days. It is on weekend. A lot of people are like, I
Hmm.
have family now. I don't know if I want to be gone all the time. I would say if you're thinking about judging, please come. We'll take you on. We'll train you. We'll get you on the panel. We'll teach you all we have because we need more people that care, more people that want to be there.
I love that. I can think of a few people that I'm nudging to be cheer judges. So you were talking about looking up synonyms and having fresh words and not just saying be sharper or smile more, but having fresh feedback. We talk a lot about consistency in judging and human error. You guys are watching live dancing and live stunting and might miss something. And that brings me to AI and all of the things that AI is doing now. Is that something that you could see as being part of cheer judging? Is maybe like a robot is judging cheer and humans are like verifying?
Yeah, you know what? I've had these conversations with Infinity last year because they released, I think, their own AI that would be looking into routine for a full year before doing anything. And I was so curious about that because there is a part of
I heard about
judging
that
that,
too.
yeah. And
Yeah.
like, I was at some Infinity event and I was like, show me the AI. I want to see. But there is like nothing to see yet. Maybe this year. Who knows? But yeah, I feel like there's a part of judging that could actually benefit from AI. And what I mean by that is the part where sometimes, let's say in tumbling, we're like, how many people did that pass?
Mm-hmm.
And then we have to stop the video, and then it's pixelated and
Yeah.
sometimes hard to see, and a person is moving at really great speed, but then it's blurry and it's hard to
Yes.
see. So I would say that could be a part that I would see. Yeah, okay, everybody, what we had 27 and your number, you're thinking, okay, maybe it's 26, and they're like, no, it was actually 27, and they can pinpoint them on the screen would be really interesting. I would say for comments, I don't see AI being of help. There's too many mistakes right now with AI, too many
Mm-hmm.
that I don't know if they would replace the an actual human looking for real accurate routine. But for the counting parts and the things like maybe deductions, that could be like, is it a fall? Is it a bobble? Was it control and control? Like they could, I don't know, maybe measure speed. That could be really interesting. But I don't think we're there just yet
That
in
is
terms of
something that
technology.
I appreciate about you guys as judges is that I do know that certain numbers have to execute certain tumbling skills. And every time I watch a cheer routine, I'm always like, how in the world do they keep track of these people crossing through each other, doing round off back handspring, back tuck? Like, how do you see all of them all at once?
Yeah. You know what? The more you judge cheer, it's almost like you're like not every it's almost like you're an NBA referee, right? You didn't start in the NBA. You started in like your minor league, you grew into the sport, and so then your brain started like becoming at the speed at which all of the skills are happening. It's the same thing for judges. The more you're looking at it, the easier your brain just like snaps like the number. You're like, that was 14, that was 12, this person didn't throw, like hips here were like not squared off, so they probably did two cartwheel instead of a front walkover cartwheel. There's just those like little cues that you're catching on because you've seen so much. You have so much reference point in your brain.
I feel like I just hearing you talk about it, my eyes would just be
Yeah.
like circling and rolling and trying to go in two different directions. And I don't think judging is for me.
That's completely okay.
Yeah,
It has
no one's calling and asking me.
some people were sending you routines before, don't they?
It's
Please
more
help us.
like, as a mom, can you relate to this? And I'm like, their uniforms are so cute.
I love the hairstyle.
Okay, to wrap things up, do you have a heartwarming or a fun story to share about a one of your best judging moments watching a cheer routine?
Oh, that's a really good one. My best moment. There's, yeah, there's this category, it's a division in Canada that I don't know if you guys have in the US. And I'm like, I've been asking myself that for a little while, but we have this category that is the masters category, and it's 25-year-olds and up. So open age from 25 and
Oh,
higher.
interesting.
And
Okay.
yeah, and then all of these 25-year-old and higher, if the schedule is smaller, so they have less competition, and then they practice like once or twice a week. and they're in a level like a level 3 or 4. So it's not like they're not breaking their backs, but they're still
Mm-hmm.
doing like pretty hard skill. Like you can throw layouts and like back handspring and like standing tumbling and so on. And there's really big competition in Quebec on that. And like teams with 50-year-olds on them, like white hair dads. That's I'll send you a picture. Like white hair dads that are performing this that have like regular job but are doing that on the weekend. And I find that so heartwarming because the amount of stories we like I see on social media of like, this was my last time, my last year, my last this, my last that. And I'm like, we're failing those athletes that could continue, maybe not at the like ICU USA team level, but that could continue to just be part of the sport and like coach younger team because they're still in the gym and just keep people in the sport a little bit more. So like when I see those team of like older adults still doing it and still loving it, that I find really heartwarming.
Yeah, we have something. I've seen a few gyms have like a parent routine that they just do at the competition if the competition will let them as just like a fun thing and it's more of like making
We
fun of
had mom
themselves.
and dads. Yeah, yeah,
But
yeah. We had mom and dad before, but master is competitive.
they're actually competing. Interesting. Yeah, and I've got to break it to all you parents. My daughter has had her last cheer thing multiple times now. And so cheer keeps pulling her back and I'm not mad about it, but when you love the sport, it keeps calling. So I
Hmm.
love those additional opportunities for adults to compete that isn't just at the back breaking, joint tearing world level.
Exactly.
Adults have a hard time throwing those doubles after a certain age. And my daughter's on an open level 4 team, and she's having so much fun because there's
That's
skills
it.
that she's had since she was 10 or 11, and it's harder to pull them as an adult, but I don't want to say it's like riding a bike because I don't know, but it's so fun. They're competitive, but it's so fun because it's things that their bodies can actually do and they can be competitive and still stay in the sport.
And you're not at a space where you're like, I'm developing skill, but you can still be maintaining and having fun and
Right.
like performing these as an adult. So that's my that's one category I really every time they come out, I'm like, look at this. Do I come back and cheer again? I have always this moment every time I watch them. Should I?
Yeah, you should. You should. If you're considering it, I'd come watch. I'd come watch you perform.
I'm scared.
Come out and do a tap dance in the middle of the mat.
Exactly.
They like lay down a floor for
A
you to tap
little
some
wooded.
salt. I see it. I could see it. The future
You
of
have a
cheerleading.
vision.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Before too long, there's going to be like floors rising up and people flying like on I don't know, Wicked style.
Cirque du Soleil.
Yeah, yeah, humans piling on top of humans on top of humans. Who knows? You are so entertaining, and I just want to thank you for all of the education and positivity that you spread in the cheer industry for everybody. I know athlete, coach, and parent alike that enjoys you and your content. So if people have not heard of you and want to connect with you, how can they find you?
I am judge.mimi on every single platform. I'm mostly on TikTok and Instagram. With Instagram, you get some stories, so like behind the scenes, sometimes my family also. And then on TikTok, we just got stories in Canada. We didn't have it before. So maybe I'll start using that. I'm not fully sure.
Fingers crossed on TikTok that it just keeps
Yeah, TBD.
hanging in there. It keeps
Right?
finding its way to scrap to the front. Okay, awesome. We'll link that, and thank you so much. I hope to see you at an event soon.
Yes. Maybe in Colorado. That's probably my best guess. I'm there like 2, 3 times
Oh, I didn't know that. That's
yeah.
cool.
Okay.
Yeah, that's awesome.
What up, party people? This is Jason Larkins, host of the Let's Talk Cheer podcast, and I've teamed up with Kristen Wheeler of the Cheer Mom podcast and Dan Cotton of the Cheer Biz podcast.
That's right. Hey, everybody, Kristen here. We know that you love cheer, so why not dive into more perspectives? Tune into my podcast, the Cheer Mom podcast, for cheer issues spoken from the parent's perspective. Then head over to Dan's podcast, the Cheer Biz podcast, to learn from a gym owner on how to run a successful cheer business. And of course, don't miss the Let's Talk Cheer podcast featuring Jason Larkins, the one that we all know and love, where they talk about cheer from a coach's perspective.
Which means whether you're a coach, a cheer parent, or a gym owner, we've got you covered. Find all 3 podcasts on Apple Podcasts and Spotify, and stay tuned for new episodes each week.